Oh, okay. I was gonna say, that looks like you can hold water. Like, it's like a portable hot tub. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying.
I brought mine. Perfect. Perfect. Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished guests, members of the media, thank you all for joining us today for Domestic Violence Awareness Month and our October Domestic Violence Press Conference. I stand before you not only as a representative of Harbor House, but as a voice for countless individuals who suffered in silence for too long. Domestic violence is an issue that demands our attention. It also demands our empathy and our united efforts to bring about change. The impact of domestic violence extends far beyond physical injuries. It leaves scars on hearts and on minds. It shatters families, disrupts communities, and perpetuates a cycle of abuse that can span generations. Domestic violence takes many forms, and it's not just about physical abuse. It's about control, manipulation, and fear. Victims endure emotional abuse, financial exploitation, and sexual coercion. It's about power and control, and that has no place in a relationship. Domestic violence isn't an isolated program, it's pervasive and insidious. The national statistics are absolutely staggering. Every 9 seconds in the United States, a woman is assaulted or beaten. On average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by their intimate partner in the United States. For 1 year, this equates 10 million women and men. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have been victims of some form of physical violence by an intimate partner within their lifetime. And on a typical day, here in the United States, over 20,000 phone calls are answered at domestic violence hotlines across the United States. In Orange County and in the city of Orlando, Harbor House answered almost 10,000 calls last year. That's 400 more calls than the previous year. We were shelter to 909 individuals, with more than half of those individuals being children. We provided over 100,000 life-saving services. And then also, our services impacted over 37,000 individuals right here and where we all live and where we call home. Behind these numbers are real people, real lives, and real suffering. And to meet this need and to keep people safe, Harbor House is expanding our emergency shelter from 120 beds to 136 beds. This expansion means that we're going to be able to serve more women and children and men. And after we complete it mid-October, Harbor House will be operating the largest domestic violence shelter in the state of Florida. Why? Because domestic violence is significantly underreported, and so we don't know what the actual need for shelter is. We also know that immediate access to emergency shelter means life or death, and our shelter may be the only alternative to being in an unsafe home. Support services are available, including our safe shelter, our emergency crisis hotline, counseling, and legal assistance. And to anybody out there who feels trapped, alone, please know that help is just a click or a call away. Addressing domestic violence requires a collaborative effort. Law enforcement, community government, community organizations all must work together, and we must ensure that victims have access to resources and the protection that they need while holding perpetrators accountable. And now I'd like to bring up Deputy Chief Administrative Services Anthony Watts, representing Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings, and also he's a Harbor House board member.
Good morning. On behalf of the Honorable Mayor Jerry L. Demings, who is remiss he cannot be here today, I extend a warm and heartfelt greeting to all of you. Domestic violence is a public health and safety issue that spans gender, age, sexual orientation, and religion, and affects people of all socioeconomic and ethnic backgrounds. Michelle Spurzell, who we're fortunate to have as the CEO of Harbor House, already shared some very sobering statistics regarding domestic violence. So she's already engaged your intellect and your minds. But if you allow me for a moment, I would like to engage your hearts. Imagine, if you will, a shadowy room suffocating in its silence, a child hidden beneath a bed, clutching a worn-out teddy bear, eyes wide with tears and terror. A woman or man, their reflection marred by shades of purple and blue, flinching at the mere whisper of a floorboard or opening door. These souls, bound by invisible chains, are shackled to their fears, memories, and relentless cycle of pain. Everyday items, a belt, a glass bottle, a menacing look, and even a raised voice become harbingers of horror. And for so many of the people that I just spoke about, it is not imagination. It is not a fictional tale. It is their reality. And in these difficult times for them, I remember and think back to the words of the good book that says, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. And that is why this morning we stand united to shed light on the shadows and to amplify the silent voices of domestic violence. Because in this county, Mayor Demings and countless others, many of them here today, will never stop working together for our survivors. And that is why on October the 21st, 2019, Mayor Demings reconvened the Orange County Domestic Violence Commission to identify gaps in services, significant issues, and solutions to reduce domestic violence in Orange County. Significant work has been done in this area, but we will continue to work to take our efforts to the next level. I want to speak for a moment directly to our victims and survivors of domestic violence who might be listening. Know that in this county, Orange County, in Mayor Demings, you have a committed friend, ally, and advocate who will continue to work towards ending domestic violence in our community. Some might say it's impossible, but your mayor, our mayor, Jerry Demings, is bold enough and courageous enough to believe that collectively, working hand in hand, we can make the seemingly impossible possible. Another friend, ally, and advocate who shares in the commitment to end domestic violence in our beloved community is the Honorable Sheriff Mina, and I will now turn it over to him.
Good morning. I'm proud to stand with all of you here in our continuing effort to eradicate domestic violence in our community. During Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I want to make it very clear to everyone in Orange County that we are here for our survivors. So we must continue to raise awareness about domestic violence here in our community to make sure everyone has the tools they need to protect themselves, their pets, and their children. So here at the Sheriff's Office, we have two Harbor House advocates that work here in the building. We work very closely with them to make sure that our survivors have all the resources they need that are available to them. And so we know that Harbor House has seen a sharp increase in calls for help. We have not seen that increase at the Orange County Sheriff's Office, but we know that does not tell the full picture of violence here in our community. So far in 2023, we have responded to 3,500 domestic violence calls. In 3,300 of those cases, we have made arrests or filed charges. And that's about 1,000 fewer than last year. But there is no escaping a very concerning increase in domestic violence murders here. So just this year, our domestic violence detectives and our homicide detectives have investigated 12 domestic homicide murders as compared to 7 last year. So in some of those cases, law enforcement was never called when the violence occurred. But in others, we did respond. We did make arrests, and unfortunately, the abusers were not held accountable. So I'm confident that everyone on this stage are moving forward with a shared commitment to protect our survivors and hold abusers accountable for their actions. For our part at the Orange County Sheriff's Office, we want to make sure that the survivor's experience, starting with the very first 911 call, all the way through the interactions with our deputies and our detectives, is a good experience where we are believing them, we are protecting them, and we are making them feel safe and taken seriously. So all of us here today are committed to bring these crimes out of the shadows, enhance the services for our survivors, and bring abusers to justice. So this time I'll invite Chief Smith up to the stage.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good morning. On behalf of the men and women of the Orlando Police Department, we stand in support of domestic violence survivors. When I took office as Chief of Police, I made it our department's mission to reduce violent crime and build community relations. Our mission includes the crime of domestic violence. It will not be tolerated in our community. The Orlando Police Department is working very hard every day to ensure that domestic violence victims are getting the help that they deserve and the suspects committing these crimes are held accountable for their actions. OPD's Criminal Investigation Division works hard to bring justice for domestic violence survivors and provide them with important resources available to them, such as Harbor House. Along with the Sheriff's Office and other law enforcement partners across our community, we are working together with our community partners to be there for victims, provide necessary resources, and help them get the safety that they deserve. If you find yourself a victim of domestic violence or know someone that may be a victim, you are not alone. Know that we are here to help you. Call us and let us help you to get the help you deserve. Thank you for joining us and taking a stance against domestic violence.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today. The safety of anyone seeking protection from domestic violence will always be a top priority for me and my office, the Orange County Clerk's Office. My office, like all clerks across the state of Florida, receives and processes petitions for domestic violence injunctions, or what is better known as restraining orders. Each year since 2020, my office has processed more than 4,000 petitions for restraining orders. So far this year, we have had just under 3,000 petitions filed. Nearly 3,000 petitions is way too many for any community. No person should ever be abused by someone who's supposed to love them. It's just not acceptable. Restraining orders are essential services that are available year-round at no cost to individuals in need. Restraining orders are a way to help survivors. First, restraining orders force abusers by law to stop the abuse or threats. They also prevent abusers from coming near or contacting the survivor and make abusers leave the home or give temporary custody of children to the survivor. Further, the penalty for an abuser that violates a restraining order is an arrest. In Florida, an injunction is processed in 2 steps. Individuals must first request a temporary injunction for immediate protection by filing the appropriate paperwork with my office. The court will then schedule a hearing for a final injunction to establish more permanent protections. In Orange County, a restraining order petition may be filed at the downtown courthouse in Suite 320, Monday through Friday, 7:30 to 4 p.m. Or you can file anytime or night online at the Florida Court's e-filing portal. And details on how to file a restraining order in person or online can be found on my website at www.myorangeclerk.com. I am grateful for the partnership with Harbor House because Harbor House has an office located directly in the courthouse in room 520, where there's a legal advocacy team that can assist you at any time. Me and my deputy clerk stand ready to assist anyone in need of these protections. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And now, State Attorney Bain.
A little taller than everyone. All right, good morning, everyone. Every hour of every day, just in Orange County, we receive a report of domestic violence. That's an average over 750 cases per month. To put that in perspective, that was a little over 9,200 cases last year in 2022 that came into our office as domestic violence incidents reported. These numbers are shocking, especially when you consider those only account for the reported instances of domestic violence that make it to our office. Statistics show, on average, 7 unreported instances of domestic violence happen before law enforcement is called. Every instance of domestic violence can turn fatal, each increasing the likelihood of death. Prosecuting domestic violence is homicide prevention. The goal of my office is to investigate and prosecute every one of these cases in a manner that ensures the safety of each victim, their children, and their families. I'm excited to announce that on the first day of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, or the first business day of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I created an independent domestic violence unit made up of experienced prosecutors, paralegals, and victim advocates who specialize in handling these sensitive cases of domestic violence. Domestic violence cases are a unique area of prosecution in our office that requires a special attention to make them effective. The members of these unit will work closely with our community partners like Harbor House and law enforcement and the clerk's office to make sure that these victim awareness services are given to our survivors and our victims. Prosecuting domestic violence is not about upholding the law. It's about defending the most fundamental principles of human dignity, justice, and equality. It's about protecting the vulnerable, breaking the cycle of violence, and fostering a safe and thriving community. Let us stand united in our commitment to prosecute domestic violence cases for the sake of those who suffer in silence and for the betterment of our society. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. We'll now open it up for questions.
I have a question. You mentioned that you're going to have more beds, and the response must be immediate. Why?
Well, first off is because there is a housing issue here in Orange County area. And also when you're looking at how specialized domestic violence is and the safety concerns that are associated with it, that's why people reach out to us, because sometimes we are the only option. They don't feel safe going to a friend's house. They don't feel safe going to a hotel. They don't feel safe going to a parent's house. And so we are the only alternative that they have.
But you say immediate. It seems like it's like someone who has a heart attack and there's that window, that golden window. Explain that in terms of domestic abuse.
So when someone is experiencing domestic violence, they go through a lot themselves as far as calling our emergency hotline, trying to determine what is the safest route for them. Is it staying? Is it going? Is it safety planning, leaving? And so a lot of times when we're talking about immediate, it's someone where they know if they don't leave that day, that their partner, their husband, their wife will kill them and their children. And so that's what we mean about immediate, that someone can call, we can do an assessment with them right away over the phone. And then also the entire agency that's at the emergency shelter will know that we're there to expect them. We can make space for them. We can move people around if we need to, but to create that immediacy for someone to feel safe and come in right away. Thank you.
I have a question. I'm not sure, State Attorney Bain, this might be for you, but I don't know. Over in Texas, the Fifth Circuit decided a man with a domestic violence restraining order against him is able to keep his guns, claim second amendment. Now, the Supreme Court is going to be hearing this upcoming term. What does that mean for people in Florida?
Well, our current law prevents anyone with a domestic violence injunction, a no contact order from the court from possessing a firearm. Our statutes are pretty clear and strong about that issue. I can't predict what that court, I've read the opinion, so I don't know where the court opined on the original meaning of our Constitution included that domestic violence abusers were entitled to possession of their firearms, and whether that's going to be a temporary or permanent dispossession of the weapon. So I can't foresee into the future what the courts are going to say, but obviously that we'll take away any appropriate action that stands to protect our victims as much as we can.
Mr. Bain, you said that these cases are unique.
Yes.
Why?
The difference in what we call almost like stranger chronic crimes, where there is somebody, no relation between the victim and the perpetrator. Those are things kind of you're used to seeing on TV and used to seeing play out in media cases and things like that. But there's a difference. There's a difference when the person that is the perpetrator is somebody that says they love you, somebody that's supposed to be protecting you, supposed to be defending you, is now turned into the person that is becoming the perpetrator or the source of your unprotection. So that requires a specialized level of prosecution, a specialized level of knowledge of the prosecutors and our victim advocates, so that we can effectively protect our victims because they are vulnerable, because they may see the person as somebody that they love and they want to go back to, but not understanding that that person is just as dangerous as any threat that they can experience, or even more dangerous at that point. So that's the idea, and that's the reason why we decided to open our specialized unit, so that we can have our prosecutors focus in on those type of victims and deal with those type of cases and address the rising level of violence that you just heard Sheriff Mina talk about when it comes to domestic violence homicides.
Thank you, Mr. Bain. You can bear with me. Can I pivot now? We've had this case in Apopka where an 11-year-old has shot other children.
Yeah.
Two questions. A, could he be tried as an adult? I mean, it's early. And B, your thoughts on this? He got this gun out of his mother's glove compartment.
I just got a 5-minute briefing, probably just about the same time you all did, from the chief out there. He was going to say he was going to talk to you guys about 5 minutes before he talked to me. So I don't have a lot of the information about the case. Obviously, we're going to investigate the case. We're going to look at it, see what's the most appropriate action to take, but I can't make a comment as to what's the future of that case right now.
Your thoughts, though?
It's the ongoing situation that all of us are dealing with up here on the stage, especially from the law enforcement perspective. The level of violence is unacceptable right now, especially from our youth. They perceive to have enemies where there may not really be them, and not understanding that they're really their own enemy at that point, because they're stealing time from themselves and from the lives of everyone else that they're affecting by the violence they're perpetrating on our community. So we're going to stand strong to deal with those cases and try to end or put a big slowdown to what's going on in the streets right now.
State Attorney, the gun storage safety law was rejected by the Florida Senate. And I know you just found out about this case. I understand. But in this situation, could that law, because at this point, it appears that parent's only going to get a slap in the wrist for having a gun not safely secured in that car. I mean, how can this not help? Again, an 11-year-old child got a gun and shot 2 other kids.
Can I please ask that any questions for any of our speakers be related to domestic violence and Domestic Violence Awareness Month? There will be an opportunity to have one-off conversations with them as well, separate from them being on the stage. So if you could hold any of those questions until after we are done with this press conference, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much.
For anyone on stage, can you identify 3 things that can help reduce domestic violence?
I'll let Michelle take a crack at it after me. I know she doesn't, but from the law enforcement perspective, and this is why we do all these programs at Harbor House, such as the It Takes Courage door hanger program. We need people to come forward. And if it's not the victim, we need neighbors and relatives who see the signs of abuse to notify us, right? Then when we are notified, then law enforcement can file charges where appropriate, get them the services they need. And then the third piece of that is where Harbor House comes in and gets the person housing and gets them all the resources that Michelle has talked about.
We have a phenomenal community. And so one thing that we are doing really well together, and we will continue to work well together, is working collaboratively to identify the gaps that we have in our local community and to come up with solutions for them. So for instance, that would be number one. But an example of that is with Orange County Sheriff's Office, a victim who would be calling the non-emergency number and coming to here, Orange County, in order to file a report. They used to have to wait for someone who was on patrol to come here and interview them. Instead, there are people here who now will come out and bring them in and have a conversation with them. And that's a way of really saying, we're here to support you, we believe you, and we're going to be handling it in the same way that we would as far as someone who would be responding on scene to a domestic violence. And so really identifying the gaps and working together to be able to do that. That's the first one. Another one is making everybody aware the signs of domestic violence and that we're all advocates. And so I totally agree with what you just said. If people know the signs, that other people will be able to talk to someone about domestic violence and let them know that there are services available. And I think the third and really important one is that we are talking about it today, but we need to talk about it every day, because domestic violence is happening every day, and an alarming number. And it's unreported because people don't feel comfortable, one, calling 911 because they've had a negative experience, or they don't feel comfortable because they're really scared about what's going to happen next, or there's a lot of shame associated with it. But the more we talk about it every day and people know that there are services that are available, that is where we're going to make a huge difference.
I would just like to add to that, to enunciate on the point that Michelle made about collaboration. And I just want to pivot back to that is why Mayor Demings established, reconvened the domestic violence task force, so that we could bring those individuals to the table in our community who are incisively positioned to figure out how to address the issue of domestic violence. I also want to point out, my grandmother used to say, never allow somebody to tell you how to tie your shoes if they haven't walked a mile in your moccasins. And so one of the things that I wanted to emphasize about the reconvene is that it was extremely important to Mayor Demings to ensure that we had representatives from those individuals who are survivors of domestic violence, so that we could see through their eyes and utilize their experiences to help us develop a sound strategy collectively to address the issue. Thank you.
And I'm going to add to the Domestic Violence Council. So we just completed a 14-month deep dive into the criminal justice system, and we did a community mapping with everybody on this stage, had individuals who attended those meetings for us to identify how we're working together, what can we improve upon, and then along with that, we had focus groups with a lot of our different survivors that have been using different aspects of the criminal justice system and to really help us address where we can work together. And the example I gave about having somebody here meet with an individual who needs to file a domestic violence report, that came out of that interaction with that community mapping. And the sheriff's office responded immediately to that. And so that was another just example of how we are all working together.
Thank you all very much. Any other questions? Okay, we're going to take a group picture in front of the step and repeat, and then we'll be able to break out into one-off interviews.
I better when someone has a shutter, because you know someone's actually.
Yeah, it's like taking a picture.
That's happening. Thank you all
Notice a
so
digital
very,
picture,
very
so
much.
that's-
for being here. And thank you all for coming.
I just noticed the purple star.